Hey everyone. So overall, glial cells, neuroglia, you might hear those different terms used interchangeably, provide support functions for the nervous system. In the cerebral cortex, they outnumber neurons, but in other parts of the brain, it's the opposite, where neurons may outnumber glial cells. So here's a quick snapshot, and what we're actually going to do is go through each of these one by one and talk about their different functions. But this is a really nice diagram to go back to just for a quick snapshot of the different types of glial cells that we are learning about. So the first type of glial cells that we are going to talk about are astrocytes. What astrocytes do is wrap around synapses of functionally related axons of neurons. And by doing that, they are shielding that axon from chemicals that are circulating around that axon may be harmful to that axon. They take up ions and transmitters released by axons and then release them back, which helps synchronize closely related neurons and enable axons to send messages in waves. So in other words, if we need a series of neurons to be working together to generate a rhythm, astrocytes are helping that happen. So here's an astrocyte blown up. As you can see, the astrocyte is basically connected to these axons of the neurons that they are supporting, and they are also related to capillaries. And as you can see, astrocytes, they also have that star-like shape. So now let's move on to microglia, another type of glial cell. Microglia act as part of the immune system. So their function is to help remove viruses and fungi from the brain. And they do proliferate after brain damage, meaning that they remove dead or damaged neurons. And they contribute to learning by also removing weak connections. What I think of here is kind of use it or lose it. So if it's a connection we're not using, the microglia are going to help get rid of that connection. So here's that part of the diagram that shows microglial cells blown up. So as you can see here, they're smaller than astrocytes, but they're connected kind of in the same way to those adjacent neurons. Okay, so the next type of glial cells that we are going to talk about are oligodendrocytes. That's quite a mouthful. It's a very big word to say. And their primary function is to help build myelin sheaths in the brain and spinal cord. So again, the brain and spinal cord are what encompass the central nervous system. So that's where they are helping to build myelin sheaths. And they supply axons with nutrients for proper functioning as well. So let's take a look at this blown up oligodendrocyte. And as you can see here, they are basically helping create a myelin sheath. And for an oligodendrocyte, that's going to be, they're creating that myelin sheath helping around the brain or the spinal cord. That moves us on to Schwann cells, which you may remember from video 1. And Schwann cells are basically doing the same thing as oligodendrocytes, except they are doing those in the peripheral nervous system. So they are building myelin sheath in the peripheral nervous system and surround and insulate certain vertebrate axons. So here's this part of that diagram blown up with the Schwann cells. And as you can see, they are creating that myelin sheath, except this would be an example of a cell that we would find in the peripheral, a neuron that we would find in the peripheral nervous system rather than the central nervous system. Okay, so that brings us to Epinema Glia. And what ependymal glia are doing are secreting our cerebrospinal fluid that circulates through the brain and around the spinal cord to insulate and protect those structures. So this may be a new term for you, cerebrospinal fluid. So that is the fluid that is surrounding the brain and the spinal cord to protect it. And so what these cells do is line the brain and spinal cord tissue, particularly in the brain's ventricles, much like a skin. So here's kind of like under a microscope, those ependymal glia cells that you might see. And you can kind of see it's almost like a wall that's protecting that area. And here's from that initial diagram that we referenced, here's a more pictorial image of that. And again, they look kind of like a wall, basically protecting the structure. And this would be the brain or spinal cord tissue that it's protecting, and that fluid that it's creating to protect the structures. Okay, and then the last one, which isn't pictured in that summary diagram, but I did put another picture in here, are radioglia. And what they do is they help guide the migration of axons and dendrites during development. So when we are embryos, basically what they're doing is telling these different cells, neuron cells, where to go and telling them what we need. So they're guiding. So here's a radial cell here, and what it's doing is guiding where different neuron cells should go to create what we need as we develop. Okay, so that covers all of the glial cells that we need to know for this class. And again, this image here that we blew up in the beginning is a really great image to go back to just for a quick snapshot of the different types of glial cells. And in general, just remember that they are there to provide support functions for the nervous system.